Hello, and welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with Judeo-Christian values and real-world first-hand experience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. I really mean that. While you're listening, if you want to help others, if you like this podcast, you want to help others find it, scroll down, hit some stars, leave a review. It's just a free, easy way to support the podcast. It's going to plug in the bio. If you've heard it before, don't want to listen, you can skip ahead to around 3 minutes and 45 seconds. That's about 7 fast forwards on most apps that I've seen. Get to the body of the episode. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. All right, men. What if I told you there was a gun out there, a firearm out there, that could double your accuracy and cut your shooting time in half? What if I told you there was a gun like that out there? Now, recently, I sent a picture to my nephew. He's into guns. He's not yet 21. Good kid, Eagle Scout. Good man, Eagle Scout. He's about to turn 21. Been talking back and forth about handguns. He's got a few rifles. and I sent him a picture of two of my handguns, a SIG M17, which is basically a 320 that the military adopted, and a SIG 226, which is one that kind of lost out to the Beretta a number of years ago. Both full-size fighting handguns, both of which are my general. One of those is my general go-to EDC gun, everyday carry gun. He asked what the differences were, and I told him, as far as full-size fighting combat handguns go, they're about as different as a modern designs can be. One's polymer and plastic and modular, and a lot of modern manufacturing techniques, and the other one's a lot more old-school metal-on-metal fit, refined fit and finish, wood grips, wood and metal. But then I thought about that, and I didn't text him this, telling you guys, but I thought about what the difference was as far as practically. Now, one of those guns costs 3 times what the other cost. The older SIG 226 single action only Legion cost about 3 times what I paid for the M17. And I got a good deal on the M17, but I bought both used. And for all that extra money, you know what the difference practically is? At least for me, I'm going to say it's about 10%. I like the SIG 226 Legion. It's a single action only. That's the main reason that I like it. If I could get that gun in polymer like that with a single action only trigger and accuracy, that'd be great. But as far as I know, that gun doesn't exist. But as far as I'm talking about me and shooting with it, I'd say about 10% better. And that's a real thing. 10% is a big deal. If I'm in a gunfight, I want that 10%. But all that extra, and that 10% is just a best guess on my part. I don't know even a good way to quantify that. And for a less experienced shooter, it would be even less of a difference. But here's the thing. Guys will spend... I manage a firearms and training company. I see guys come in all the time, and they just bought a handgun, and they shot it a few times, and now they want this handgun and that handgun. I get why they want that. I get why they want the next cool thing. I realize that most of that is marketing. There are reasons to move to different handguns. When I first started competition shooting, I was a police officer. I ran a Glock. That's what I went to my first competition with. And I quickly realized that was not the best gun for me. I could not reach the controls with it. Alone a Glock 21 back then. I think Gen 3 was the latest gen that was out. I could not reach the controls. I had to move the gun in my hand to manipulate it. It was not the best gun for me. I switched to a Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm. Ran that gun for years and years and years and won more competitions than I can remember with it. But these guys, every week it seems like, or every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's a new hot polymer striker fire handgun on the market. And the differences are within, let's say, a few percentage points of this thing or that thing. Oh yeah, this thing came out. It's got this feature and these slide serrations and this thing and that thing. And they rush out and drop, who knows how much money, $700, $1,000, $2,000 on another handgun. When in all reality, it's probably not going to change their shooting that much. I am sitting here looking at a factory stock. I changed the sights on it for night sights, but they're a factory option sight, but it's just a factory Glock 17. And a lot of times I'll go to training and I'll shoot that because most of my students run, just Glocks. You know what? I can shoot that gun great. Can I shoot my SIG 226 better? Yeah, but fractions of a percent better. And that matters to me. What I'm saying is that I don't think that there's a gun out there that I'm aware of that's going to make you twice as accurate or twice as fast. That's the bad news. But the good news is there is something out there that can do that for you. Number 1, if you lack anything, pray for it. Number 2, training and competition can do that for you. If you're even a good average shooter that has not competed or been to legit training class, like your buddy or your uncle, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like a legit training course. A lot of those are within the cost of a new handgun. A new handgun's probably not going to make you twice as accurate, but a good training class certainly can. A good handgun, that next new hot handgun, the competition Legion Titanium, Max Ultra Superfly edition of whatever, is probably not going to cut your time in half as far as shooting drills go. But you know what can? Training and competition. They can do that. let's make up Joe, John Doe shooter, average shooter, shoots a couple of times a year. He comes in to my place and rents a couple of different handguns. I could run him through some basic drills. Mozambique drill, a Bill drill, an El Presidente, assuming he's got that level of proficiency, with a Glock, a 320, a 1911, and he's probably going to be within a few tenths of a second on all of them. Now, he might prefer one gun to the other, or, like I said, the controls and the fit and the natural pointing may be better, and that's important. But you're talking a few percentage points, in my opinion. But if I took that same man and had him go to competitions every weekend, and he really was trying, and he came back after, let's say, 6 months, it'd be hard for me to believe that his scores wouldn't be a few percentage points better. They would be significantly better. I sent him to, and I am still, even though I haven't done it in a while, I am a certified instructor for one of the largest firearms training schools in this country, and probably by that measure the world, at least for private citizens. I kind of like an Army boot camp or something, but I am that, and also a FBI firearms instructor. And I bet if you ran somebody through, and take your pick, front sight, gun sight, Thunder Ranch. I haven't even been to some of those, but those aren't affiliated with the podcast, so I'm not going to tell you which one I'm affiliated with. But if you ran somebody, average shooter, through one of those courses and they really applied themselves and honed the talents God's given them, they would get significantly better. I would say double is an easy benchmark to obtain. Double the accuracy, cutting their times in half from the draw to getting good hits on target. I remember this, and this may have changed, but I remember this sticks out in my mind, that an LAPD as an FBI firearms instructor, you would want a cop to be able to get a good draw and hit on a silhouette target in about a second and a half. That was a good benchmark. I can do that in the .7s routinely. I practice in the .7s. I try and get some in the .7s. That's not an average shooter. That's an average cop that's supposed to be better. That does train and has been to training. You give me a Glock, my time may be a little bit slower, but you're talking maybe a hundredth or a few hundredths or maybe a tenth of a second difference. Give that cop a couple of different guns. He may get a little bit better or a little bit worse, but you're talking probably a few hundredths of a second or a tenth of a second. But you give somebody training and or competition, and they will get significantly faster and more accurate. So I don't think, in my opinion, there's any gun out there you're going to go out and buy and it's going to double your accuracy or cut your times in half. But training can. Competition can very easily do that. And I don't know why. Maybe it's an American thing. Maybe it's just a human thing, that we think the next shiny thing is going to significantly make us better. When what we have to do is train and practice and dry fire and go to competition. One gun even may be twice as accurate as another. Like, let's say you have a rifle that shoots 2 inches at 100 yards, and you go out and get a rifle that can shoot an inch at 100 yards, which is very doable. A lot of, let's say rifles nowadays guarantee MOA or better, which is 1 inch at 100 yards or better. That's not exactly right, but it's easy to picture. That's easy to do, but that's off a bench. You're probably not going to shoot a deer off a bench. You're probably not going to get in a gunfight off a bench. In fact, I can't ever remember that happening. Maybe off some sandbags or something, but I'm talking about like a shooting bench and a vise where you have all the time in the world to take your shot. So as far as practical accuracy goes, there's not much difference in the two. You get some training, run some competition, do a bunch of dry fire, your accuracy will far improve. So before you go out and buy that next AR, before you go out and buy that next handgun, if you have one and it's a decent one, I encourage you to spend that money you would spend on another gun, on training, on a legit training course. And here's the big takeaway from training. It's not that training course per se is going to do it in 2 days. It's that if you've never been to a legit training course or a legit competition, it should show you, rather, if it's good training, how to train. They will give you the things that you need to go home and continue to train yourself and continue to practice and drills to do on your own. You know, that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. They'll give you the basics of a good, clean draw, and then you can refine it day after day after day to shave off those tenths of a second. And then once you get good, those hundredths and hundredths of a second. But training can do that. Competition can do that. A new handgun's probably not going to do that. So I would encourage you again, before you run out and build that next AR, before you get that next new edition of whatever handgun, if you haven't gotten training, get training. And you would think me, I've had a ton of training. I've, like I mentioned in the bio, U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps, FBI certified firearms instructor, instructor for one of the largest firearms training schools in the country, probably the world. I am and have been a professional firearms trainer for a long time. You guess what I still try and do every year? Get training from somebody else. Otherwise, I just get stuck in this loop of what I already know and preconceived notions of what I'm doing is best. If I'm never exposed to different things, how will I know if there's something out there better or not? It's part of being a gunfighter, a great shooter, an alpha male is always seeking to be better. I still seek external training every year, and it's not uncommon for me to go back and get a basic course because I'm not too good for the fundamentals. I haven't competed, I'll be honest, since COVID. Last competition I did, I was very blessed. I did a national competition, national level competition. I took third. I took several penalties for stepping over a line, which is a violation, which cost me a lot of time. I'll be honest, I don't think I would have gotten first. A guy that I know and a guy that I work with and hired got first, and I'm very proud of him for that. Anyway, I haven't competed since COVID. I kind of went down a rabbit hole. But I haven't competed since COVID because I used to reload a lot. And then I got rid of most of my reloading stuff because, pre-COVID, it was almost silly to reload especially for handgun. Maybe not precision rifle. Because ammo was so cheap and so available. And I was working a ton. I was the commander of a tactical team. I had, dozens of men under my command, and I just didn't want to spend that time. If I had that time, I'd rather spend it dry firing and practicing and shooting than reloading. Reloading takes time. So I sold all that stuff off, and then COVID hit, and ammo got really hard to get. So I haven't competed since then. I hopefully will get back into it soon. I'm kind of itching for it. Unfortunately, I live in a small area, and there's really nowhere around here that does it. The competitions I'm aware of around here are on Sabbath, and I rest on the Sabbath. You shall not work on the Sabbath, and you shall rest. I love competition, but I would not call it restful. Hopefully I can find some, even if I have to travel quite a ways. But anyway, a lot of tactical guys crap on competition, and I would ask those tactical guys if they have won competition. I will say from personal experience. I was, by the time of my early 20s, a Marine Corps combat veteran, urban warfare instructor. I was a police officer. I had graduated LAPD Police Academy, the longest academy, and some would say the best academy in the country. I thought I was a decent handgun shooter. And then I went to my first handgun shooting competition, and I got freaking schooled. I got disqualified. I could have gotten frustrated and been like, oh, these competition guys, they don't know what's up. But I realized that I thought I was a pretty good shooter for a cop, and I probably was. But I was not a very good handgun shooter compared to competition shooters. Like I said, a lot of police officers and tactical guys will crap on competition shooters, but I would venture to guess that most of them have not ever won a competition, and they use that as an easy out. I will be the first to admit that tactical, defensive training and shooting competition are not the same, but they do rhyme rather well. They go together. If they say that stuff doesn't apply, I would say, to that. I don't remember who said this. I didn't come up with this, but which part doesn't apply? The being really accurate part or the being really fast part? Because this is gunfighter life, and being fast and accurate is kind of the name of the game. From my experience, not every cop, but you take your average cop and run into a competition, they will not do very well. You take your average competition shooter and run them through, let's say, the FBI qual, whatever the local post, police officer standards and training qualification is, and they'll do awesome. And they're not the same. I'm not saying you should get one or the other. I'm saying you should get both, but either one is better than just buying the next gun, I think. You have a decent handgun. Look up a training school in your area, a legit training course. I'm not going to endorse any one company, any one person. Like I said, I seek a wide variety of training. Some of the stuff I agree with, some of the stuff I really, really disagree with, but I still try it and give it a shot. Some schools out there still teaching, the Weaver stance for handgun. But I'll still try, give it my best shot. I would give you some advice to seek a good trainer. If you are looking for a trainer, I would say some, are probably better than others, but any of them are probably better than none. Unless it's just a horribly unsafe trainer, you're probably better with any of the training than none of it. The same with competition. I like USPSA, but I've also shot IDPA and 3-gun, and Steel Challenge is probably my favorite, but I also shoot GSSF matches. I would say pick one. If you know enough to be safe with a handgun, show up to one of the competitions. I don't know which one it's going to be, I don't know where you're at, but I would venture, you go to any of them, the people there are going to be super polite and super helpful. You don't even have to go compete your first time, just go watch if you want. But if you want to compete, show up. If you have a handgun, let's say 3 magazines, a decent outside the waistband Kydex holster, and a couple hundred rounds of ammo. That's really all you need for the competition. Don't worry about all the other slick gear. Don't even worry about being competitive your first time out. In fact, don't even worry about that. Like I said, my first competition, I got disqualified. And guess what? I went right back the next time. Show up with an attitude of being safe and learning. The same attitude you should show up with at a training class. And pick one. I don't care if it's Steel Challenge. I don't care if it's GSSF. Those are probably the first 2 beginner friendly because there's not a lot of dynamic movement. You're not doing wind sprints or anything like you will in the other competitions. But just pick one, show up, be safe, and be polite, and learn as much as you can. Again, to reiterate, buying that next gun is not going to probably double your accuracy or cut your times in half. But training and or competition very easily can. Learn what you need to know, and then don't just be the guy that goes to a training class once a year and then doesn't pick up his gun. Be the guy that goes to the training class, the competition, and then goes home and practices. Learn the skills you need to refine yourself. Learn the skills to forge yourself to be a better shooter. And then if you do decide your gun is holding you back, then at least you'll know what features and what things to look for to get that next gun. Instead of just being like, oh, this person on YouTube said this gun's great, I gotta have it. It's got the new shiny baubles and the tactical doohickey on it. Which is going to bring us to our tactical tip of the day. And this comes to you from Patreon. If you don't know about Patreon, you want to support the podcast, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. There's a Patreon link on there. But I talk to my patrons pretty regularly. In fact, we have a group chat on Facebook. Like one of the only reasons I'm on Facebook. And it's not just me helping them. We help each other. It's a community. It's a tribe. Tactical tip comes from one of our patrons. Patron Pat. He'll know who he is. I don't need to mention any more than that. And the other patrons will too. We're a tight-knit tribe there. I haven't tried this out firsthand, but he says that, and I have no reason to doubt him, that Taurus G2C, and for that matter probably the G3C, they'll take SIG 226 mags, which have been around a long time and are pretty prevalent. Military surplus, police surplus. And by that token, they should also take the 229 mags, if I'm correct about that. But the Taurus line, he's saying, will accept the SIG 226 series of mags, which is pretty cool. So if you find some of those pretty cheap, especially surplus. Speaking of training, he said that he ran a training course with that gun. But that's your tactical tip of the day. The Taurus G2 and G3s will take the SIG 226 mags. Pretty cool. He's got another one for us here too. I'll throw in a bonus. He says he likes the fish hooks. The pre-tied lead are much easier to attach to dental floss or kite cord, broken down a 550 cord. So if you don't know what he's talking about, if you're not into fishing, they sell hooks. Also sell hooks with monofilament with leaders pre-tied to them with like a loop hook, or rather a loop knot on the top. It does make them far easier to attach to things like trot lines and bigger line and things like he's talking about. That's a great tactical tip. Thanks to Pat for that. Which brings us to the tactical verse of the day. Man, if you're listening to this, if you've been on Facebook or anything like that today and you have not opened your Bible, what are you doing? Get in your Bible. It's the instruction manual for people. What I'm saying is far less important than what God is saying. I hope that you have read your Bible today. I hope this is a supplemental in addition to your passages you've already read today. But this is a great one. Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking on the form of a bondservant and coming in the likeness of men, and being found in the appearance as a man, He humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Therefore God has also highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name. Humility is a great attribute for any man, but it will come in useful in any training class, in any competition that you go to. You can be humble and still win. You can be cocky and lose. Those two things are not connected. I'll throw in a bonus tactical verse of the day. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourself, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your cares upon him, because he cares for you. Thanks, man. Have a blessed day.